Marcus Johnson was not your average CEO. Born into a modest family in a small town, he had worked tirelessly to build his empire from scratch. With grit, determination, and an unshakable belief in himself, Marcus had transformed a single rundown motel into one of the most luxurious hotel chains in the country. His hotels were known for their elegance, comfort, and world-class service. Yet despite all his accomplishments, Marcus often found himself questioning whether people saw him as more than just another face in the crowd. One evening, sitting alone, in his penthouse office overlooking the glittering lights of Manhattan, Marcus came up with an idea that would challenge everything he thought he knew about his business and about society. He decided to book a room at the Regal Heights, his flagship property, without revealing who he was. The goal? To experience firsthand what it felt like to be a regular guest at his own hotel. Would the staff treat him with the same warmth and respect they extended to every other visitor? Or would something deeper, something harder to define, affect how he was treated? It wasn't just curiosity driving this decision. It was a need to understand. Over the years, Marcus had heard whispers from friends and colleagues about biases they faced in high-end establishments. As a black man who had achieved success in an industry dominated by tradition and exclusivity, Marcus couldn't help but wonder if he'd ever truly belong in these spaces, or if others assumed he didn't. So, with a mix of excitement and apprehension bubbling inside him, he picked up his phone and made the reservation under the name Marcus James. The next morning, Marcus prepared carefully for his undercover adventure. He dressed casually, wearing a simple pair of slacks and a button-down shirt. He left behind anything that might give away his identity. No fancy watch, no designer shoes, nothing flashy. Just a plain leather wallet containing his fake ID and credit card. Before heading out, he reminded his assistant once again not to inform anyone at the hotel of his arrival. This was going to be a completely solo mission. As Marcus drove toward the hotel, memories flooded back to him. He remembered the early days when he first purchased the old building that would become the Regal Heights. It had been a risky investment, but Marcus saw potential where others saw decay. He poured his heart and soul into renovating it, turning it into a beacon of luxury and sophistication. Now, as he approached the grand entrance, he couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. But alongside that pride lingered a question. Did this place truly reflect his values? When Marcus pulled up to the valet stand, he stepped out of his car slowly, taking in the scene around him. The towering glass doors shimmered under the midday sun, and uniformed staff members bustled about, attending to guests arriving in sleek limousines and sports cars. A young valet hurried over to greet him, offering a polite smile. "Good afternoon, sir. May I take your keys?" Marcus handed them over with a nod, watching as the young man inspected his modest sedan before driving it away. For a moment, Marcus wondered if the valet judged him based on the car he arrived in. Shaking off the thought, he grabbed his bag and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the lobby was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting soft light across the polished marble floors. Plush velvet chairs lined the walls, inviting guests to relax while sipping coffee or tea. The air smelled faintly of lavender and citrus, a signature scent Marcus had personally chosen to create a calming atmosphere. Everything looked perfect, the kind of perfection only years of hard work could achieve. But perfection, Marcus reminded himself, wasn't just about appearances. It was about how people felt when they walked through those doors. Were they greeted with genuine smiles? Did they feel valued and respected? These were the questions Marcus hoped to answer during his stay. He approached the front desk, where a young woman sat typing furiously on her computer. She glanced up briefly, then returned to her screen. Marcus waited patiently, observing her closely. She seemed young, probably fresh out of college and slightly overwhelmed by the flurry of activity around her. Still, he expected better. After all, this was his hotel. Every employee here represented his vision, his dream. Finally, she looked up again, offering a polite but distant smile. "Hello. How may I assist you today?" she asked, her voice tinged with a hint of distraction. Marcus cleared his throat. "Hi, I have a reservation under the name Marcus James." She nodded and began searching for his booking. As she typed, Marcus studied her expression. There was no flicker of recognition, no indication that she realized she was speaking to the owner of the entire chain. And why should there be? He was just another guest, indistinguishable from the dozens of others checking in that day. Still, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Was it warmth? Genuine interest? Or was it simply professionalism? Whatever it was, he intended to find out. Part 2. Expanded, 650 words, Emily Carter adjusted her posture as she pulled up Marcus's reservation on the computer screen. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, though her mind raced even faster. The lobby was unusually busy that afternoon, filled with corporate travelers, families on vacation, and couples celebrating special occasions. Amidst the chaos, Emily tried to focus, determined to provide efficient service despite the mounting pressure. "Ah, yes, Mr. James," she said finally, forcing a smile. "I see you've booked our executive suite. Is there anything specific you'll need during your stay?" Marcus leaned slightly forward, resting his elbows on the counter. "Not at the moment, thank you," he replied smoothly. His tone was calm, almost casual, but his eyes never left hers. Emily felt a strange intensity in his gaze, as though he were studying her every move. She shifted uncomfortably, unsure why this particular guest made her so uneasy. After handing over his credit card for verification, Marcus took a moment to glance around the lobby. He noticed the way Emily interacted with the other guests, her demeanor shifting subtly depending on who stood before her. When a well-dressed businessman approached the desk, she brightened immediately, her voice growing warmer and more animated. But when a young couple with 2 restless children came next, her smile faltered slightly and her responses became clipped. Marcus couldn't help but observe these nuances. They weren't glaringly obvious, but they were there. A subtle difference in tone, a fleeting change in body language. It was easy to dismiss such things as mere coincidence, but Marcus knew better. Years of navigating boardrooms and networking, events had taught him to read between the lines. People revealed far more than they realized through their actions, and Emily was no exception. Once his check-in process was complete, Marcus accepted his keycard with a polite nod. "Thank you," he said simply before turning to leave. As he headed toward the elevators, he caught sight of himself in a nearby mirror. Dressed in his understated attire, he blended seamlessly into the crowd. No one gave him a second glance, not the concierge arranging transportation, not the bellhop waiting by the luggage cart, not even the security guard stationed near the entrance. In that moment, Marcus understood exactly what he wanted to prove. Back at the front desk, Emily let out a quiet sigh of relief. Something about Mr. James had unsettled her, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, with quiet confidence and an air of authority. Or maybe it was the piercing look in his eyes, as if he could see right through her. Whatever it was, she was glad he hadn't asked too many questions or demanded extra attention. As the day wore on, Emily continued assisting guests, each interaction blending into the next. By the time her shift ended, she had nearly forgotten about the man named Marcus James. That is, until she overheard a conversation between 2 senior managers in the break room. "So, did you hear?" one of them whispered, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. "Apparently, Marcus Johnson is staying at the hotel tonight." Emily froze, her cup of coffee halfway to her lips. "Wait, Marcus Johnson? Like the Marcus Johnson?" "The CEO." The manager nodded, lowering his voice further. "Yeah, apparently he's doing some kind of undercover thing. He wants to see how we treat guests when we don't know who they are." Emily's heart sank. Suddenly, the pieces clicked into place. The man she had checked in earlier, the one with the intense gaze and quiet confidence, that was Marcus. "Johnson?" She groaned inwardly, replaying their brief encounter in her mind. Had she been too distracted? Too cold? What must he have thought of her? For the rest of the evening, Emily couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she had failed somehow. She prided herself on being professional and attentive, Yet now she wondered if she had fallen short. If Marcus Johnson really was testing them, what would he say about her performance? Would this cost her job? Little did Emily know, Marcus wasn't interested in punishing anyone. Instead, he was gathering insights, small observations that would help him make meaningful changes within his organization. For now, however, Emily remained unaware of his true intentions, leaving her to grapple with guilt and uncertainty as she clocked out for the night. Meanwhile, upstairs in the executive suite, Marcus settled into his temporary home. From the floor to ceiling, windows, he gazed out at the city skyline, reflecting on the day's events. The experiment was underway, and already, he had learned more than he anticipated. After settling into the executive suite, Marcus took a moment to appreciate the view. The room was everything he had envisioned when designing it: spacious, luxurious, and meticulously detailed. Soft lighting bathed the space in warmth, while plush furnishings invited relaxation. But as stunning as the suite was, Marcus knew that true hospitality wasn't just about beautiful rooms. It was about how guests felt during their stay, and so his experiment continued. His first test came sooner than expected. As he unpacked his belongings, Marcus realized he hadn't brought enough toiletries for his 3-day stay. No problem, he thought. This was a 5-star hotel after all. He picked up the phone and dialed the front desk to request extra towels and toiletries. "Hello, this is Mr. James in the executive suite," he said politely. "Could you please send up some additional towels and perhaps a toothbrush kit? Thank you." The response on the other end of the line was courteous but noticeably delayed. "Of course, sir. We'll get those sent up shortly," the receptionist replied before hanging up. Marcus glanced at the clock. It was 2:15 p.m. He decided to time how long it would take for his request to be fulfilled. An hour passed, then another. By 3:45 p.m., still nothing. Growing curious and slightly irritated, he called back. This time the tone of the staff member changed. There was an edge of defensiveness in their voice. "I apologize, sir. I'll check on that right away." Finally, at 4:00 p.m., nearly 2 hours after his initial request, there was a knock on the door. A young bellhop stood outside, holding a small bundle of towels and a basic toiletry kit. Without making eye contact, he muttered a quick apology and left almost as abruptly as he'd arrived. Marcus watched him go, feeling both frustrated and intrigued. Was this level of service typical, or was it tied to who he appeared to be? Later that evening, Marcus decided to push further. He placed another call, this time ordering dinner from room service. When the operator answered, her voice sounded rushed and disinterested. "Yes, what would you like?" she asked, skipping any pleasantries. Marcus ordered a steak with garlic butter, mashed potatoes, and a glass of red wine. He made sure to specify that he preferred medium rare and asked for the meal to arrive within 30 minutes. 25 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. A server entered, balancing a tray precariously in one hand. He set it down without much care, mumbling something about enjoying the meal. Marcus inspected the plate. The steak was overcooked, well done instead of medium rare, and the mashed potatoes were lukewarm. Even worse, the wineglass was smudged with fingerprints. Marcus sighed, jotting down notes on his phone. These incidents might seem minor individually, but together, they painted a troubling picture. Was this how regular guests were treated? If so, his hotels weren't living up to the standards he had worked so hard to establish. Determined to uncover more, Marcus resolved to spend the next day testing different areas of the hotel. The following morning, Marcus woke early and headed to the hotel gym. Dressed in athletic wear, he blended seamlessly with the other fitness enthusiasts. Inside, the equipment gleamed under bright fluorescent lights, and upbeat music played softly in the background. At first glance, everything seemed fine. But as Marcus began his workout, he noticed subtle signs of neglect. One treadmill emitted a strange grinding noise, and several weight machines lacked proper instructions or safety warnings. When he approached a staff member to report the issues, the man barely acknowledged him. "We'll look into it," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Frustrated but undeterred, Marcus moved on to the pool area. Here, too, he found inconsistencies. The water was clean, but the lounge chairs were mismatched, and the towels provided were thin and worn. It was clear that maintenance had fallen by the wayside. By lunchtime, Marcus returned to his suite to regroup. Sitting on the balcony, he reviewed his notes. While none of the problems he'd encountered were catastrophic, they added up to a disappointing overall experience. More importantly, they highlighted a deeper issue: complacency. Somewhere along the way, his team had stopped striving for excellence. They had grown comfortable, assuming that the hotel's reputation alone would keep guests coming back. But Marcus knew better. In the competitive world of luxury hospitality, even the smallest details mattered. As the afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, Marcus made a decision. Tomorrow, he would escalate his experiment. He would step out of the shadows and confront the biases and shortcomings head-on. Only then could he begin to address the root causes of these issues and ensure that every guest, regardless of appearance or background, felt truly valued. On the second day of his stay, Marcus decided it was time to turn up the heat. He wanted to see how far the cracks in the system went, and what better way to do that than by stepping into spaces where expectations were highest. With this goal in mind, he dressed casually in a pair of jeans and a hoodie, a stark contrast to the tailored suits and designer outfits typically seen in the hotel's upscale venues. Armed with determination, he headed to the rooftop restaurant for breakfast. The rooftop was breathtaking, offering panoramic views of the city skyline. Guests mingled over steaming cups of coffee, their laughter blending with the gentle hum of conversation. Servers glided between tables, ensuring everyone's needs were met. But as Marcus approached the hostess stand, he noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The hostess hesitated, glancing at his attire before forcing a smile. "Good morning, sir. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, under Marcus James," he replied confidently. She checked the list, then nodded and led him to a table near the edge of the terrace. As he sat down, Marcus couldn't help but overhear whispers from the nearby waitstaff. "Who's the guy in the hoodie?" one server murmured to another. "Is he lost?" Their comments stung, but Marcus remained composed. He opened the menu and studied it carefully, waiting for someone to approach. Minutes ticked by, yet no one came. Finally, a server reluctantly walked over, her expression guarded. "Can I help you with something?" she asked, her tone clipped. "I'd like to order breakfast," Marcus said calmly, handing her the menu. She scanned it briefly before nodding. "Okay, I'll put that in." As she turned to leave, she hesitated. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she added, gesturing vaguely toward the cafe downstairs. Marcus raised an eyebrow, fighting the urge to laugh. "Yes, I'm exactly where I want to be," he replied evenly. The server flushed and hurried away, clearly embarrassed. Over the next hour, Marcus deliberately lingered at his table, ordering multiple courses and taking his time with each dish. He watched as the staff exchanged uneasy glances, clearly unsure how to handle this unexpected guest. Later that afternoon, Marcus attended a yoga class hosted by the hotel's wellness center. Once again, he sensed judgmental stares from both guests and instructors. During the session, one instructor singled him out, repeatedly correcting his posture despite his obvious effort. Afterward, another participant commented loudly, "This isn't really your scene, is it?" Each interaction chipped away at Marcus's patience but also fueled his resolve. These weren't isolated incidents. They were symptoms of a larger problem. His hotels prided themselves on inclusivity and exceptional service, yet here he was, facing discrimination disguised as indifference. Something needed to change, and fast. That evening, Marcus returned to his suite, his mind racing. He had gathered more than enough evidence to prove his suspicions. Now, it was time to act. Tomorrow, he would reveal his true identity and challenge his team to do better, not just for him, but for every guest who walked through their doors. For Marcus, this experiment wasn't just about exposing flaws. It was about creating a culture of empathy and respect. And as he prepared for the final phase of his plan, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but it had to start somewhere. The next morning, Marcus woke up with a sense of purpose. He had seen enough, and now it was time to confront the truth head-on. Dressed in a sharp suit, his signature look, he walked into the lobby, exuding confidence. The transformation was immediate. Heads turned, whispers filled the air, and staff members straightened their postures as he approached the front desk. Emily, who was on duty again, greeted him with her usual polite smile. "Good morning, Mr. James. How can I assist you today?" she asked, not realizing that this encounter would change everything. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. "Actually, Emily, there's something I need to tell you." Her eyes widened slightly, sensing the gravity in his tone. "My name isn't Marcus James, it's Marcus Johnson." For a moment, Emily simply stared at him, uncomprehending. Then, as realization dawned, her face flushed red. "Oh my goodness," she stammered, her hands flying to her mouth. You're the Marcus Johnson, the CEO?" Marcus nodded, giving her a small, reassuring smile. "Yes, I am. And before you start apologizing, let me say this. I'm not here to embarrass you or anyone else. I wanted to experience our hotel as a regular guest, to see how we treat people when we don't know who they are." Emily looked mortified, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm so sorry if I failed you, sir. I didn't mean to. You didn't fail me, Marcus interrupted gently. But what happened over the past few days has shown me some things we need to work on. This hotel represents my values, and I want every single person who walks through those doors to feel welcome, respected, and valued. That includes you too. Her expression softened, though she still seemed shaken. Marcus placed a hand on the counter, leaning closer. "I'll be honest with you, Emily. There were moments when I felt overlooked or judged, not because of anything I did, but because of how I looked. And while these incidents might seem small, they add up. They shape how guests perceive us. Does that make sense?" She nodded slowly, absorbing his words. "Yes, sir, I understand completely." "Good," Marcus said with a nod. "Because I'm going to call a meeting with the entire staff later today, and I'd like you to join us. You're part of this team, and your perspective matters." Later, that afternoon, the conference room buzzed with anticipation. Employees from all departments gathered, curious about why the CEO himself had called an impromptu meeting. When Marcus entered, the room fell silent. He stood at the front, scanning the faces of his employees, some nervous, others intrigued. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady and warm. "Over the last few days, I stayed at this hotel undercover, using a fake name. My goal was simple: to experience firsthand how we treat our guests when we don't know who they are." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Marcus let it settle before continuing. "What I discovered wasn't easy to hear. Some of you were wonderful, kind, attentive, and professional. But others, let's just say there were lapses in service that shouldn't happen in any establishment, let alone one bearing my name." He paused, letting his words sink in. "For example, when I requested extra towels, it took nearly 2 hours for them to arrive. When I ordered room service, my steak was overcooked and the wine glass was dirty. At the gym, equipment was broken and no one seemed concerned. And yesterday, when I went to the rooftop restaurant wearing casual clothes, I was treated differently than other guests." The room grew quieter, the weight of his observations hanging heavy in the air. Marcus continued, his tone firm but compassionate. "These aren't isolated incidents, they're symptoms of a bigger issue. We talk a lot about inclusivity and excellence, but actions speak louder than words. If we truly want to live up to our reputation, we have to hold ourselves accountable." He then shared specific examples from his stay, highlighting both positive and negative interactions. By the end, many employees looked reflective, while others appeared genuinely moved. Marcus concluded with a challenge. "Let's use this as an opportunity to grow. Let's create a culture where everyone feels welcome, regardless of how they look, what they wear, or where they come from. Because that's the kind of hospitality I believe in, and that's the legacy I want us to build together." In the weeks following Marcus's revelation, the hotel underwent a dramatic transformation. Inspired by his message, the staff rallied around the idea of creating a more inclusive and empathetic environment. Emily, in particular, emerged as a leader in this effort. Determined to make amends for her earlier missteps, she volunteered to spearhead workshops on implicit bias and cultural sensitivity. During these sessions, employees engaged in open discussions about their own experiences and assumptions. Role-playing exercises helped them practice handling difficult situations with grace and professionalism. For instance, they learned how to greet guests warmly without making snap judgments based on appearance. They also explored ways to improve communication, ensuring that every interaction left guests feeling valued. Marcus supported these initiatives wholeheartedly, investing in training programs and resources to help his team succeed. He introduced anonymous feedback systems, allowing guests to share their thoughts without fear of retaliation. These systems provided valuable insights, enabling management to identify recurring issues and address them promptly. One of the most impactful changes came in the form of leadership town halls. Every month, Marcus hosted meetings where employees from all levels could voice their concerns and ideas. These gatherings fostered a sense of community and transparency, breaking down barriers between departments. Staff members appreciated having a platform to speak freely, and many innovative solutions arose from these conversations. Under Emily's guidance, the front desk team implemented new protocols to ensure consistency in guest interactions. They focused on personalizing each check-in experience, asking thoughtful questions and offering tailored recommendations. Guests began noticing the difference immediately, praising the warmth and attentiveness of the staff. Meanwhile, Marcus kept a close eye on progress, visiting various properties within his chain to ensure standards remained high. During these visits, he often shared stories from his undercover stay, reminding employees of the importance of empathy and attention to detail. His presence inspired teams to strive for excellence, knowing that their efforts contributed to something greater. As word spread about the changes happening at the Regal Heights, the hotel gained recognition not just for its luxury amenities, but also for its exceptional service. Online reviews highlighted the friendly and inclusive atmosphere, with guests describing their stays as memorable and heartwarming. Families, couples, and solo travelers alike raved about the personalized care they received, vouching for the hotel's commitment to excellence. Behind the scenes, Marcus felt a deep sense of pride. Watching his vision come to life reaffirmed his belief in the power of leadership and accountability. He knew that true success wasn't measured by profit margins or accolades. It was reflected in the smiles of satisfied guests and the dedication of empowered employees. And yet, Marcus understood that the journey was far from over. Building a culture of inclusivity required ongoing effort and vigilance. But with a team as passionate and committed as his, he was confident they could overcome any challenge. For Marcus, this experience had been more than just a lesson in hospitality. It was a reminder of why he started this journey in the first place. Growing up, he had faced countless obstacles and biases, but he refused to let them define him. Instead, he used them as fuel to create something extraordinary, a legacy rooted in kindness, respect, and equality. As he stood on the rooftop of the Regal Heights one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Marcus allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but he was ready. After all, progress starts with courage, and sometimes, booking a room in your own hotel can teach you more than years behind a desk ever could. Months later, the impact of Marcus's bold experiment rippled far beyond the walls of the Regal Heights. The changes he implemented didn't just improve the hotel, they sparked a movement within the hospitality industry. Word spread quickly about the CEO who had gone undercover to expose hidden biases and elevate service standards. Other hotel chains began taking notice, and soon, leaders across the globe were reevaluating their own practices. Guests continued to flock to the Regal Heights, drawn not only by its luxurious accommodations but also by its reputation for unparalleled warmth and inclusivity. Online reviews painted vivid pictures of stays where every detail was thoughtfully considered. One guest wrote, "From the moment I walked in, I felt like I belonged. It wasn't just the beautiful rooms or delicious food. It was the genuine care from the staff that made my visit unforgettable. Another reviewer praised the diversity training initiative, saying, "You can tell they've worked hard to create an environment where everyone feels welcome. It shows in everything they do." Emily became a shining example of what leadership looked like when fueled by empathy and determination. Her workshops on implicit bias gained traction, not just within her own hotel, but throughout the entire chain. Employees who once felt hesitant to speak up now embraced opportunities to contribute ideas and share feedback. The culture shift was palpable, transforming the Regal Heights into a workplace where people genuinely enjoyed coming to work. Marcus, meanwhile, used his platform to advocate for broader change. He spoke at conferences, sharing his story, with audiences eager to learn how they could foster inclusivity in their own organizations. His message was simple yet powerful. True hospitality isn't about perfection, it's about connection. When we treat each other with kindness and respect, we create experiences that last a lifetime. He also launched a foundation dedicated to supporting underrepresented individuals pursuing careers in hospitality. Through scholarships, mentorship programs, and community outreach, the foundation aimed to diversify an industry often criticized for its lack of representation. For Marcus, this was personal. Growing up, he had faced countless doors closed to him because of his background. Now he wanted to open those doors wide for others. Despite his growing fame, Marcus remained grounded. He continued visiting his hotels regularly, always ready to roll up his sleeves and assist wherever needed. Whether it was helping a bellhop carry luggage during a busy check-in rush or chatting with guests over coffee in the lobby, he never lost sight of why he started this journey: to make people feel valued. One evening, as Marcus sat in his penthouse office reflecting on the past year, his phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Emily, thanking him for trusting her to lead the charge toward change. "I'll never forget the day you revealed yourself at the front desk," she wrote. "It changed my life, and the lives of so many others. Because of you, I know what real leadership looks like." Reading her words brought a smile to Marcus's face. He realized that while awards and accolades were nice, moments like these, the quiet victories of growth and transformation, were what truly mattered. As time went on, Marcus's story became more than just a tale of one man challenging the status quo. It served as a reminder that progress begins with courage and accountability. By stepping out of his comfort zone and confronting uncomfortable truths, Marcus proved that even the most successful businesses could evolve, adapt, and thrive when guided by principles of empathy and inclusion. Looking ahead, Marcus envisioned a future where no guest would ever question whether they belonged in a space simply because of how they looked or dressed. He dreamed of a world where hospitality wasn't just a transaction, but a celebration of human connection. And though there was still much work to be done, he approached each new challenge with optimism and resolve. In the end, Marcus's experiment taught him something profound, not just about his hotels, but about himself. Success wasn't measured by titles or wealth. It was defined by the lives you touched and the legacy you left behind. As he gazed out at the glittering skyline one final time, Marcus knew he had done more than build a hotel empire. He had created a blueprint for lasting change, and that, he thought with quiet satisfaction, was worth every step of the journey.